A black waitress jumps into freezing water to save a crippled old man, unaware he's the Korean Mafia boss's father. The splash was wrong. Talia Brooks knew it the moment she heard it. Not the playful sound of kids jumping into the community pool, but something heavy, desperate, final. She turned from wiping down tables at the poolside cafe, her tray of dirty dishes clattering to the concrete as she saw him. An elderly Korean man in a wheelchair, sinking beneath the surface of the deep end, his chair tumbling after him like an anchor pulling him to the bottom dot. No one else had noticed. The lifeguard was dealing with crying twins at the shallow end. Parents were absorbed in their phones. And this man, silver-haired, probably 60, wearing clothes too expensive for this run-down public pool in South Central. La was drowning in plain sight while the world looked away. Talia didn't think. She kicked off her shoes and dove in fully clothed, her uniform blouse and black slacks becoming dead weight instantly. The water was murky, chlorine burning her eyes as she swam down. The old man wasn't fighting anymore, just sinking with terrible stillness. She grabbed him under the arms. He was lighter than expected, muscles atrophied from years in that chair, and kicked hard toward the surface. Breaking through took everything she had. Talia gasped for air, one arm hooked around the man's chest, the other paddling frantically toward the edge. Someone was screaming now. The lifeguard finally noticed. Hands reached down to pull them both out, and Talia collapsed on the hot concrete, coughing up pool water while a woman in yoga pants, started CPR on the old man. He wasn't breathing. His lips were blue, face slack. Talia watched, chest heaving, as the woman counted compressions. 30. 2 breaths. 30 more. Nothing. The world seemed to slow down. That terrible stillness before loss becomes permanent. And then the old man convulsed, water streaming from his mouth, eyes flying open in confused panic. "You're okay," Talia heard herself saying, crawling over to him on shaking limbs. "You're okay. You're safe." She didn't know if he understood English, but she kept talking anyway, kept her hand on his arm, kept him grounded in the world of the living. His eyes found hers dark, intelligent, filled with fear giving way to gratitude. He tried to speak, but only coughed up more water. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics swarmed, checking vitals, loading him onto a stretcher. "You saved his life," one of them told Talia as they worked. "Another minute, and we'd be doing a recovery instead of a rescue." She nodded numbly, watching them wheel him toward the ambulance. The yoga pants woman pressed a towel into her hands. "That was incredibly brave," the woman said. "Did you know him?" "No," Talia managed. "I just saw him fall." "Well, you're a hero. You should be proud." But Talia didn't feel like a hero. She felt cold and scared and overwhelmingly aware that she'd almost watched someone die. She gathered her scattered belonging shoes, name tag that read Talia, Paradise Pool Cafe, and headed to the locker room to change. Her wet clothes leaving a trail of chlorinated water across the concrete dot by the time she'd changed. Into the spare clothes she kept in her locker-worn jeans and a faded Howard University sweatshirt, and returned to her shift. The pool had returned to normal. Kids splashed. Parents chatted. The wheelchair sat abandoned by the fence, water pooling beneath it. No one mentioned the drowning. It was like it had never happened, just another near tragedy in a neighborhood full of them. "You good?" her manager, Pete, asked when she returned to the cafe counter. He was 50, perpetually sunburned, and generally indifferent to anything that didn't affect his bottom line. "Yeah, fine. Good, because table 6 has been waiting 10 minutes for their nachos." He walked away before she could respond, leaving Talia to swallow down everything. She was feeling and returned to smiling and serving and pretending her hands weren't still shaking. That night, alone in her studio apartment with its peeling paint and window AC unit that barely worked, Talia finally let herself fall apart. She sat on her lumpy futon and cried for reasons she couldn't quite name. Relief that the man had lived. Fear at how close he'd come to dying. Exhaustion from a life that felt like drowning in slow motion working 2 jobs. Student loans she'd never pay off. Dreams deferred so long they'd started to fossilize. She'd saved a life today. But who was going to save hers? 3 days passed. Talia returned to her routine. Mornings at the Paradise Pool Cafe. Evenings hostessing at Mika's, a mid-level Korean BBQ restaurant in Koreatown. Sleep when she could. Bills paid just barely. Dreams of finishing her nursing degree pushed further into an uncertain future. The drowning man became a story she told her roommate Jasmine, who'd been appropriately impressed, then moved on to complaining about her own problems. "You should have gotten his info," Jasmine said while painting her nails electric blue on their shared futon. "Rich old Asian dude? Girl, that's a whole reward situation waiting to happen." "I didn't do it for a reward," Talia said, annoyed. "I did it because he was dying." I know. You're noble and pure and good. But rent's due in a week, and we're $300 short. Just saying, a reward wouldn't hurt." Jasmine blew on her nails. "Also, you worked too hard to be this broke. Something's gotta give." Something did give. Just not in the way Talia expected. She was refilling banchan at Mika's, the small dishes of kimchi, pickled radish, seasoned bean sprouts that accompanied every meal when she felt eyes on her. Not unusual. She was used to being watched, assessed, judged. Pretty black girl in a Korean restaurant, always slightly out of place despite working there for 2 years. But these eyes felt different, heavier, more intense. Talia turned and found him, a man at table 12, alone, nursing a glass of soju. Korean, late 20s, devastatingly handsome in a way that seemed dangerous. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that tracked her movements, black hair pushed back to reveal a tattoo crawling up his neck, intricate dragons and flowers in traditional style. He wore all black, expensive black, the kind that whispered money without shouting it. Their eyes met, and Talia felt something electric pass between them. Recognition, maybe, though she'd never seen him before. She'd have remembered. Men like him didn't exist in her world except as customers, untouchable and uninterested. She looked away first, returning to her task with burning cheeks. Table 12 needs service. Her manager Jin-soo called out in Korean, which Talia had learned enough of to understand work commands. She grabbed her order pad and approached with her professional smile firmly in place. "Good evening. Can I get you anything else?" Her voice was steady despite her racing pulse. He looked up, and Talia saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. "You work here," he said. His English was perfect, accent barely noticeable. "And at the Paradise Pool." Her stomach dropped. "I'm sorry?" "The pool 3 days ago. You saved someone." He set down his glass with deliberate care. "You saved my father." The world tilted. Talia gripped her order pad like a lifeline. "The man in the wheelchair?" "Kang Dae-young." "My father." He stood, and Talia had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He was easily 6'2", built like someone who did more than casual gym sessions. "I'm Kang Tae-hyun. I've been looking for you for 3 days. I was just doing what anyone would do." No. His intensity was overwhelming. "You did what no one else did. 20 people at that pool, and only you moved. Only you cared enough to risk yourself for a stranger." He reached into his jacket, and Talia's breath caught the movement, reminded her of movie gangsters reaching for guns, but he pulled out a business card. "I want to thank you properly. Tomorrow, lunch, my treat." "That's not necessary." "It's absolutely necessary." His eyes held hers. "Please, let me express my family's gratitude." Talia should have said no. should have maintained professional distance. But something in his gaze, desperate and sincere and unexpectedly vulnerable, made her nod. Okay, lunch. Tomorrow, noon. I'll send a car to your address. No. The word came out sharper than intended. She didn't need strangers knowing where she lived. I'll meet you. Just tell me where. He smiled for the first time, and it transformed his severe face into something almost gentle. The address is on the card. Thank you, Talia. He placed several bills on the table, far too much for one drink, and left, moving through the restaurant like he owned it. Maybe he did. Talia looked at the card. Kang Tae-hyan, President, Kang Enterprises, an address in downtown L.A., one of those buildings with names instead of numbers, and a phone number written in neat handwriting on the back. Girl, who was that? Her coworker Susan materialized beside her, eyes wide. And why did he give you his card? He's the son of the man I saved at the pool. The hot son of the man you saved? Susan fanned herself dramatically. That tattoo? That face? Talia, that man is trouble with a capital T. It's just lunch. A thank you. Nothing is ever just lunch with men who look like that and tip like that. Susan picked up the bill's 300s. See what I mean? Trouble. But Talia pocketed the card anyway, her thumb tracing the embossed lettering. Kang Tae-hyan. The name felt important, weighted with something she couldn't identify. And despite Susan's warnings, despite her own better judgment, she knew she'd go to that lunch dot because for the first time in years, something interesting was happening in her carefully controlled, desperately boring life. The restaurant Tae-hyan had chosen was the kind of place Talia had only seen in movies. Michelin-starred, reservation lists months long, waiters in suits that cost more than her monthly rent. She dressed in her only nice outfit, a navy dress from Target that she'd bought for her college graduation 3 years ago, and still felt underdressed the moment she walked in. Miss Brooks? A hostess materialized, all sleek hair and practiced smile. Mr. Kang is waiting. Please follow me. They wove through tables filled with the wealthy and powerful businessmen in designer suits, women dripping in jewelry. Conversations conducted in hushed tones about mergers and acquisitions and vacation homes in Aspen. Talia kept her chin up, refusing to shrink despite feeling like an imposter. Tae-hyan stood as she approached. He dressed down relatively in dark slacks and a white button-up with the sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle. The neck tattoo was still visible, dark ink against golden skin, and Talia found her eyes drawn to it despite herself. Talia, thank you for coming. He gestured to the seat across from him. Please. She sat, hyper-aware of the white tablecloth, the crystal glasses, the weight of silver cutlery. This is a lot for a thank you lunch. My father's life is worth more than a lunch. His expression was serious, but it's a start. He wanted to be here to thank you himself, but the doctors are keeping him for observation. The stroke he had 6 months ago left him partially paralyzed. Being underwater, unable to move, unable to call for help. Tae-hyan's jaw clenched. I can't imagine his terror. How did he fall in? His caregiver left him by the pool while she took a phone call. A child's ball rolled near his chair. He reached for it. He loves children. Always has, and the chair tipped. Tae-hyan's hands fisted on the table. It was my fault. I hired her. I chose that pool because it was close to his physical therapy appointment. I put him in danger. You couldn't have known. I should have. Knowing is my job. Something dark flickered across his face. Anticipating threats. Preventing disasters. I failed. Before Talia could respond, a waiter appeared with wine. Tae-hyan ordered in rapid Korean, and the waiter left with practiced efficiency. I hope you don't mind, Tae-hyan said. I took the liberty of choosing. If you have allergies or preferences, no, it's fine. I'm not really familiar with this level of dining anyway. The admission felt embarrassing, but Tae Hyeon's expression softened. Good. Then I get to introduce you to things you've never experienced. That's rare for me. He poured wine red, probably expensive enough to cover her grocery bill. Tell me about yourself, Talia Brooks. Beyond being a hero who saves drowning men, I'm not a hero. I'm a waitress who happened to be paying attention. You're a waitress who dove into a pool fully clothed to save a stranger. That's heroism. His eyes held hers. Why 2 jobs? Paradise Pool and Mika's? You researched me. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen. I needed to find you. And yes, I wanted to know who saved my father's life. He took a sip of wine. Student loans from Howard University. Nursing program, incomplete. 2 jobs to cover rent and debt. No family in LE or mother is in Detroit. Your father passed when you were 16. You moved here 4 years ago, chasing dreams that haven't quite materialized. He set down his glass. Am I close? Talia's throat tightened. You could have just asked. Would you have told me the truth? Or given me the polite, surface version we show to strangers? He leaned forward. I wanted the truth, Talia, because I believe in understanding the people who matter. I don't matter. I'm just someone who pulled your father out of a pool. You matter to him, which means you matter to me. The declaration was simple, absolute. My father is the most important person in my world. You gave him back to me. That creates a debt I can't repay. The food arrived courses Talia couldn't name, each more beautiful than the last. Delicate fish, perfectly seared. Vegetables that tasted like they'd been grown in heaven. Sauces that exploded with flavor. Tae Hyeon watched her reactions with quiet satisfaction, explaining each dish, encouraging her to taste, to experience, to indulge. Why didn't you finish nursing school? He asked over the 3rd course. Money. My grants ran out, and I couldn't afford to keep going while working enough to live. The old bitterness crept into her voice. Turns out helping people doesn't pay the bills. What if it could? She looked up sharply. What do you mean? My father needs a caregiver. Someone attentive, capable, who understands medical care. Someone who's proven they'll act in a crisis. Tae Hyeon set down his fork. I want to hire you. Talia's heart raced. I'm not a nurse. I didn't finish. You have EMT certification. 2 years of nursing school. And more importantly, you have instinct. You saw him drowning when no one else did. You acted when everyone else froze. His intensity pinned her in place. I'll pay you $80,000 a year. Full benefits. Flexible schedule so you can finish your degree. All I ask is that you take care of my father like you'd take care of your own. Talia couldn't breathe. $80,000 was more than she made at both jobs combined. It was loans paid off. It was school completed. It was dreams resurrected from their grave. That's too much. It's not nearly enough. But it's what I can offer without insulting you. He pulled out a contract, slid it across the table. Read it, think about it. But Talia, please say yes. My father likes you already. He doesn't know me. He knows you saved him. That's enough. Tae Hyeon's voice dropped. And between us, I trust you. I don't trust easily. But something about you feels safe. Safe. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning Talia didn't fully understand. She looked at the contract, the numbers that could change everything, and then at the man across from her with his dangerous beauty and neck tattoo and eyes that saw too much. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. He smiled, and again his face transformed. Now let's finish this meal. The dessert here will change your life. He wasn't wrong. The dessert, some impossibly light confection involving chocolate and gold leaf, was transcendent. And as Talia ate it, laughing at Taehyun's dry observations about the other diners, she felt something dangerous blooming in her chest. Hope. Talia signed the contract 3 days later. She'd had a lawyer friend from college review, and everything was legitimate, generous, almost too good to be true. But the money was real. The benefits were real. And when she called to accept, the relief in Taehyun's voice was real too. "Thank you," he said. "You have no idea what this means to me. To us. I hope I can do right by your father." "You already have. Everything else is extra." He paused. "Can you start Monday? I'll send a car to pick you up." "We're in Hancock Park." Of course they were. Hancock Park, where old money lived in mansions behind gates. Where Talia had walked once on her day off, marveling at houses that looked like museums. She'd never imagined working in one. Monday arrived too quickly. The car was a black town car, driven by a silent older man who navigated LA traffic with professional efficiency. They pulled up to a gate, which opened smoothly, revealing a circular driveway and a house that made Talia's stomach drop. Not a mansion exactly, but close 3 stories of white stone and elegant windows, surrounded by manicured gardens. Taehyun met her at the door. He was in casual clothes jeans and a black t-shirt that showed the full extent of his tattoos. They covered his arms too, she realized, intricate dragons and tigers and flowers flowing together in mesmerizing patterns. "Welcome," he said. "Come in." The interior was stunning modern design, mixed with traditional Korean elements. Dark wood, clean lines, art that probably cost more than cars. But it felt lived in, warm, not sterile like some rich people's homes Talia had seen. "My father is in the sunroom," Taehyun said, leading her through the house. "He's nervous about meeting you. He already met me. At the pool. He met his savior in crisis. Now he's meeting his caregiver. It's different." Taehyun stopped outside a door, turned to face her. "Talia, my father had a stroke 6 months ago. It affected his left side, limited mobility, some speech difficulty. He understands everything, but expressing himself is hard. He gets frustrated, sometimes angry. But underneath, he's the kindest man I know. I'll be patient. I promise." Something in Taehyun's expression softened. "I know you will. That's why you're here." He opened the door, and Talia stepped into a bright, plant-filled room where an elderly Korean man sat in a wheelchair by the windows, looking out at the garden. "Abiyaji," Taehyun said gently. "She's here." The old man turned, and Talia recognized him instantly. Same intelligent eyes, same delicate bone structure, though age and illness had diminished him. His face lit up when he saw her, and he raised his right hand in greeting. "You," he said, the word slightly slurred, but clear enough. "You saved Mr. Kong." Talia approached, knelt beside his chair so they were at eye level. "It's good to see you recovering." He reached for her hand with his working one, gripped it with surprising strength. "Thank you." Tears filled his eyes. "Scared, so scared. I know. But you're safe now. And I'm going to make sure you stay that way." She squeezed his hand back. "We're going to be great friends, you and me." He smiled, and Talia saw where Taehyun got his transformative smile. "Pretty," the old man said, then looked at his son. "She pretty." Taehyun's ears turned red. "Abiyaji, that's inappropriate." "True," his father insisted. "Pretty, kind, you. He gestured between Talia and his son, eyebrows raised meaningfully. "Absolutely not," Taehyun said firmly, but Talia caught the faintest smile. "She's here to take care of you, not deal with your matchmaking." But the old man just grinned, pleased with himself, and Talia found herself laughing. The tension she'd been carrying since entering this house dissolved. This was going to work. She could feel it. The first month was an adjustment. Talia learned Dae-Young's routines: morning exercises, afternoon physical therapy, evening walks. In the garden, she learned his tells, the way he tapped his fingers when frustrated, how he hummed off-key when content. She learned his history through photos around the house and stories Tae-Hyan told during the dinners they started sharing. Dae-Young had immigrated to L.A. in his 20s with nothing but determination. Built a business importing Korean goods. Grew that into an empire of restaurants, real estate, investments. Raised Tae-Hyan alone after his wife died in childbirth, a grief he still carried in quiet moments. And 6 months ago, while going over quarterly reports, he'd collapsed. The stroke had stolen his mobility and independence, but not his spirit. He was always the strongest person I knew, Tae-Hyan said one evening as they watched Dae-Young sleep in his chair, exhausted from physical therapy. Seeing him like this, it destroys me. He's still strong, Talia said softly, just differently. He fights every day to regain what he lost. That's strength. Tae-Hyan looked at her with something intense and unreadable. How do you do that? Do what? See good in everything. Find hope in hard situations. You work with my father all day, managing his care, dealing with his frustration, and you never lose patience. Never show anything but kindness. He shook his head. I snap at him sometimes. Get frustrated when he can't communicate what he needs. But you just adapt. I love him, Talia said simply. The truth surprised her, but once spoken, she knew it was accurate. In just 4 weeks, Dae-Young had become precious to her. His terrible jokes, his gentle teasing, his obvious pride in his son. He's easy to love. Something flickered across Tae-Hyan's face: vulnerability, longing, fear. Talia, I need to tell you something. About my family. About what we really do. Her heart sped up. Okay? The business Kong Enterprises, it's legitimate. Mostly. Restaurants, real estate, imports. All legal. But underneath ... double quotes, he stood, paced to the window. My father built his empire with help from certain ... organizations. Korean power structures that exist in the shadows. What Americans call the Mafia. Talia's breath caught. You're a gangster. I'm a businessman who inherited complicated relationships. He turned to face her. I've spent 5 years transitioning everything legitimate, cutting ties with criminal elements. But those ties are generations deep. You don't just walk away. And some people see my father's weakness as opportunity. To pressure me, to reclaim influence, to take what we've built. Is he in danger? We're all in danger. Always. That's the price of this life. Tae-Hyan's expression was anguished. I shouldn't have brought you into this. Shouldn't have put you at risk. But I needed someone I could trust completely with his care. And you. He stopped, seemed to struggle for words. You were the only person who made sense. Because I saved him. Because you didn't hesitate. Because you saw a problem and fixed it without thinking about consequences or credit, or what you'd get in return. That's rare, Talia. Especially in my world where everything is transactional. She should quit. Should walk away from this beautiful, dangerous man and his complicated life. But when she looked at Dae-Young sleeping peacefully in his chair, trusting her to keep him safe, she couldn't do it. What do you need from me? Just what you're already doing. Take care of him. Love him. Help him heal. Tae-Hyan's voice dropped. And maybe? Forgive me for not telling you sooner. There's nothing to forgive. You're protecting your father. I understand that. Do you? Because most people run when they learn the truth. I'm not most people. Talia stood, moved closer to him. I grew up in Detroit. I know what organized crime looks like. I've seen what it does to communities, to families. But I also know that people are more than their circumstances. You're trying to go legitimate. That matters. What if I can't? What if the past won't let go? Then we deal with it together. The words came out before she could stop them, intimate and presumptuous. But Tae-hyen's eyes widened, and she saw something like hope bloom in his face. Together, he repeated, testing the word. I like that. 2 months in, and Talia's life had transformed completely. She'd quit both her old jobs, enrolled part-time in nursing school online, and found herself spending nearly all her waking hours at the Kang house. Not just working living. There was a guest room she'd started using when late nights made going. Home impractical. Family dinners where she and Tae-hyen talked for hours while Dae-young watched with knowing smiles. Dae-young's recovery was progressing. He could stand with assistance now, take shuffling steps with his walker. His speech was improving full sentences sometimes, though fatigue made words slip away. And his personality was fully restored. Mischievous, warm, constantly scheming. To push Talia and Tae-hyen together. Like him, Dae-young said one afternoon during their garden walk. It was just the two of them, moving slowly along the paths while he practiced his mobility. Of course I like him. He's your son. No. Dae-young stopped, turned to look at her with those sharp eyes. Like? Love, maybe? Heat flooded Talia's cheeks. Mr. Kong, that's not appropriate. You look at him the way. I looked at T, my wife. His smile was gentle. Good. He needs someone real. Not gold digger girls. Not ... Business. Arrangement. Even if I did have feelings, which I'm not saying I do, it wouldn't matter. I work for him. For you. There are boundaries. Boundaries ... Stupid. Dae-young waved his good hand dismissively. Life short. You saved ... my life. Now save ... his. He doesn't need saving? Yes, he does. From ... himself. From ... loneliness. From ... becoming like old gangsters. Hard. Cold. Dae-young gripped her arm. You make him ... soft. Human. That single quotes. Good. Talia didn't know how to respond, so she just helped him continue their walk. But his words burrowed into her mind, taking root. Because he wasn't wrong. She did have feelings for Tae-hyen. Had developed them slowly, watching him care for his father with such devotion. Listening to him talk about his plans to legitimize the family business, to build something clean his father could be proud of. Seeing the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was precious, miraculous, impossible, but feelings didn't matter. She was his employee, his father's caregiver. Crossing that line would complicate everything, risk her job, her education, her future. So she buried the feelings deep and focused on her work. Until the night, everything changed. It was 2 a.m. when Talia heard the crash. She was in the guest room, having stayed late after Dae-young had a difficult evening with muscle spasms. The sound of breaking glass jerked her awake, followed by shouts in Korean. Her heart racing, she grabbed the baseball bat Tae-hyen kept by the guest room door, just in case, he'd said when he put it there, and crept into the hallway. More voices, angry and overlapping. A scuffle. And then Dae-young's voice, scared but defiant. You ... leave? My son ... alone. Talia ran. Down the stairs. Toward the sunroom where she'd left Dae-young sleeping in his specialized bed. The door was open, light spilling out, and inside were 3 men she didn't recognize, Korean, mid-30s, dressed in dark clothes. One had Tae-hyen pressed against the wall, arm across his throat. Another was shouting rapid Korean at him, while the third held a gun pointed casually at Dae-young's head. Talia didn't think, just acted. She swung the bat hard into the gunman's kidney, and he went down with a howl. The gun clattered across the floor, and she dove for it, adrenaline making her graceless but fast. Her fingers closed around cold metal, just as the man at the wall released Tae-Hyan to charge toward her. "Don't move," she screamed, pointing the gun with shaking hands. "I said don't fucking move." Everyone froze. Tae-Hyan's eyes were wide, blood trickling from his split lip. Dae-Young was pale but defiant in his bed, and the three intruders stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to fury. "Talia, put the gun down," Tae-Hyan said carefully, hands raised. "You don't need to. These men broke into your house and threatened your father. I absolutely need to." She kept the gun trained on the man closest to Dae-Young. "Now someone tell me what the hell is going on." A fourth man appeared in the doorway, older, maybe 50, with silver streaking his black hair and eyes like chips of ice. "You must be the famous Talia Brooks," he said in lightly accented English. "The woman who saved Kang Dae-Young's life. How poetic that you're here to save it again. Who are you?" "Park Min-ho. I'm an old friend of the family." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I came to have a discussion with young Tae-Hyan here about certain business matters. I didn't expect armed resistance from the help." "Get out," Talia said, voice steadier than her hands. "Now, or I call the police." "The police?" Park laughed. "My dear, you really don't understand what family you've joined. The police won't touch this, won't touch us. We exist in places the law doesn't reach." "Talia, please," Tae-Hyan said. Blood dripped onto his shirt. "Let me handle this." "Like you were handling it when that guy had you by the throat?" She didn't lower the gun. "I don't think so." Park's expression shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. "Fierce. I like her, Tae-Hyan. Much better than those pretty, useless girls you usually date. This one has spine." "You need to leave," Tae-Hyan said, voice cold. "Now, before this escalates beyond repair." "I'll leave." But the discussion isn't finished. Park gestured to his men, who slowly backed toward the door, eyes never leaving the gun in Talia's hands. "You have 1 week to reconsider my proposal. After that, ... He looked at Dae-Young. "After that, I'll be forced to take more aggressive action regarding the old generation's debts. My father owes you nothing. Your father owes me respect, loyalty, recognition of old alliances that made his success possible." Park's voice turned sharp. "He's protected here, in this house, by old agreements. But out there, in the world, accidents happen, especially to old men in wheelchairs." The threat hung in the air, venomous and clear. Then Park and his men were gone, disappearing into the night like smoke. Talia held her position for a long moment, gun still raised, before the adrenaline crashed, and she started shaking so hard she almost dropped the weapon. Tae-Hyan crossed to her immediately, gently taking the gun from her trembling hands. "It's okay. You're okay. They're gone." "What the fuck was that?" Talia's voice came out high, panicked. "Who were those people? Why did they sit down, please?" Tae-Hyan guided her to a chair, then moved to check on his father. "Abayaji, are you hurt?" "No. Just ... scared for you." Ji-young reached up with his good hand to touch his son's face. "They're getting ... bold." "I know." Tae-Hyan's jaw clenched. "I'll handle it." "Handle what?" Talia demanded. "Tae-Hyan, I need you to tell me everything, right now. No more evasions." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. You've earned the truth." He pulled up a chair, sitting close enough that their knees almost touched. "My father built his empire with help from people like Park Min-ho, the Jopa Korean organized crime. They provided protection, connections, muscle when needed. In return, They took a cut of profits and expected loyalty. And now? Now I'm trying to break free. Legitimize everything. Cut ties. Build something legal my father can be proud of. But those ties are generations deep. Park thinks I owe him money. Influence, access to our legitimate businesses. He wants to use what we've built as a front for his operations. And if you refuse, then he'll make examples. Of me, of my father, of anyone close to us. His eyes met hers, dark with fear and guilt. Talia, you need to leave. Go home, forget this job, forget us. It's not safe. I'm not leaving. The words came out fierce, absolute. That man threatened your father. Your father, who I've spent 3 months caring for, who tells me terrible. Jokes and tries to set us up like we're in some kind of Korean drama. I'm not abandoning him. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. I saved his life once. I'll do it again. She grabbed Tae Hyun's hand. But I need to know everything. All of it. If I'm staying, I need to understand what we're facing. We. He repeated the word like a prayer. You said we. Yes, we. You, me, your father. We're in this together now. She squeezed his hand. So talk. Tell me everything. He did. For the next 2 hours, while dawn broke over L.A., Tae Hyun told her about his family's history. His father's partnership with the JOPEC in the early days, necessary for survival as an immigrant building a business in hostile territory. The gradual expansion into legitimate operations. The stroke that had left Dae-young vulnerable and Tae-hyun in charge. His 5-year plan to extract the family completely from criminal entanglement. Park was my father's partner for 20 years, Tae-hyun said, exhaustion evident in his voice. They built things together, protected each other. But when my father got sick, Park saw opportunity. Wanted to take control, use our businesses as fronts. My father refused, and I've continued refusing. But Park isn't patient. What does he want? 49% ownership of our restaurant group. Access to our real estate holdings for money laundering. My cooperation in expanding their drug distribution network. Tae-hyun's voice was flat. Everything I've worked to escape. And if you give him what he wants, we become criminals again. Everything my father built becomes tainted. And I become the thing I've been fighting not to be. Talia thought about that, about the man she'd come to know, devoted son, careful businessman, someone genuinely trying to build something good from complicated foundations. What if we fight? Then people die. Maybe us, or maybe them. She met his eyes. Tae-hyun, you said Park threatened your father. Made it clear he'd hurt him if he didn't comply. That's not negotiation. That's terrorism. It's how this world works. Then maybe it's time to change how this world works. An idea was forming in her mind, reckless and dangerous. Your father has been transitioning to legitimate business for years, right? Building relationships with politicians, community leaders, law enforcement? Yes, but then use those relationships. Expose Park. Let the legitimate world handle him. It's not that simple. Park has protection, connections, people who owe him. And if I go public, it exposes my father's past. Ruins the reputation we've built. What if you had evidence that Park was threatening a beloved community figure, someone sympathetic, vulnerable? Talia gestured to Dae-young. Your father survived a drowning that could have been prevented. What if that drowning wasn't an accident? Tae-hyun's eyes widened. You think Park was involved? I think it's worth investigating. The caregiver who left your father alone, did you ever question her about why she stepped away? About whether anyone paid her to be negligent? Jesus? Tae-hyun stood, paced. If Park tried to kill my father to pressure me, then you have leverage. Evidence of attempted murder on a disabled man. That's something even his connections can't protect him from. Talia stood too, moved to block his pacing. Hi, Hyon. I know this is risky, but sitting here waiting for them to make the next move is riskier. You're serious about this, about helping us fight. I'm serious about protecting your father. And you. The admission hung between them, intimate and terrifying. I care about you both too much to just walk away. Something shifted in Tae-Hyun's expression, vulnerability, giving way to determination. Okay, we investigate. Carefully. And if we find proof, double-face gently. Thank you. We investigate. Carefully. And if we find proof, Okay. For not running. For staying. For being brave enough to swing a bat at armed men. I'm not brave. I'm just stubborn. You're extraordinary. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips met hers softly, questioningly, and Talia kissed him back with everything she'd been suppressing for months. Need. And fear and desperate hope all tangled together. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Bae-young's voice came from the bed. Finally. Took you long enough. They both laughed, tension breaking. And in that moment, surrounded by danger, but together, Talia felt something she hadn't felt in years, like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The investigation took 2 weeks. Tae-Hyun hired a private investigator, someone with no ties, to the Jopek, to track down the caregiver who'd left Dae-young alone at the pool. She'd disappeared immediately after the incident, and that alone was suspicious. The PI found her in San Diego, living under a different name with enough money too. Rent a beachfront apartment despite being unemployed. She talked. Tae-Hyun told Talia and his father one evening. They were in Dae-young's room, the three of them forming a united front. Park paid her $10,000 to leave my father alone by the pool. Said it was just to scare him, make him more cooperative. She didn't know he'd fall in. Attempted murder, Talia said quietly. Or at minimum, reckless endangerment of a disabled person. She's willing to testify in exchange for immunity. The pay recorded everything. Tae-Hyun looked at his father. Abiyaji, if we do this, your past will come out. People will know about the Jopek connections. Dae-young was quiet for a long moment, then signed slowly. He'd been teaching Talia some basic Korean signs, and she recognized his meaning. Better honest now than successful on lies. He's right, Talia said. And honestly, the community already knows. Everyone knows how things worked for Korean businesses in the 80s and 90s. The important thing is what you've built since, how you've changed. Tae-Hyun nodded slowly. Okay, we go to the police. We make this public. And we deal with whatever comes. The fallout was immediate and intense. Park was arrested on attempted murder charges, along with 3 of his associates. The news covered it extensively. Beloved businessman Kang Dae-young, survivor of a stroke, targeted by organized crime. The story was sympathetic, powerful. Public opinion rallied around the Kang family, but there was backlash too. Questions about Dae-young's past, about how he'd built his empire, about Taeyeon's role in the family business. Protests outside their restaurants from groups claiming they supported criminals. Business partners pulling back, nervous about association. This was a mistake, Tae-Hyun said one night, watching news coverage from the living room. We're going to lose everything. You're going to lose the parts that were built on lies, Talia countered, sitting beside him. But everything legitimate. Everything clean that stays. And that's what matters. Tell that to the employees losing jobs because customers are boycotting us. So we rebuild. We create new opportunities, better ones. We show people who you really are, not who they assume you are based on the past. He looked at her, eyes red with exhaustion. How are you so optimistic? Because I've watched your father. fight for months to regain basic functions, and he never gives up. Because I've seen you work 16-hour days trying to do right by your employees. Because I know what you're capable of when you're not weighed down by the past. She took his hand. This is hard, but hard doesn't mean impossible. I don't deserve you. You're right. I'm way too good for you. She smiled to take the sting out. But you're stuck with me anyway. Over the next months, they rebuilt. Tae-hyun went on a media campaign, being completely transparent about his family's history and his efforts to go legitimate. He partnered with community organizations, donated to anti-gang programs, created job training initiatives for at-risk youth. Slowly, public opinion shifted. Tae-young continued to recover, growing stronger every day. He could walk short distances without assistance now, his speech nearly back to normal. And he watched his son and Talia with undisguised satisfaction, his matchmaking instincts vindicated. You love her, he told Tae-hyun one afternoon when they thought Talia was out of earshot. She wasn't. She was in the next room, pretending not to listen. Yes, Tae-hyun said simply. I love her. Then tell her, stupid boy. Life too short for fear. What if she doesn't feel the same? What if I'm just her employer, someone she cares for out of duty? She jumped into pool for me, swung bat at gangsters, fought to protect our family. Tae-young laughed. That's not duty. That's love. Talia's heart pounded. She should walk away, give them privacy. Instead, she stayed holding her breath. I'm afraid, Tae-hyun said quietly. Afraid of losing her, if I'm honest. Afraid she'll realize she deserves better than a former gangster with a complicated past. Afraid that by loving her, I'm putting her in danger. Love always dangerous, Tae-young said. Always risk, but worth it. Your mother, she knew what she marry into. She choose love anyway. Best decision I ever made was choosing her. Don't let fear steal your best decision. Talia couldn't wait anymore. She walked into the room, and both men looked up in surprise. I heard everything, she said, looking directly at Tae-hyun. And for the record, I love you too. Tae-hyun stood, crossed to her in 3 strides. You love me? I love you. Despite your terrible communication skills and your habit of carrying the weight of the world alone. I love how you take care of your father, how you're trying to build something good from complicated foundations. I love your dedication and your principles, and yes, even your neck tattoo. She reached up to trace the ink. I love all of you. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of relief. Behind them, Tae-young made a satisfied sound. Finally, he said in Korean. Took long enough. 6 months later, on a perfect spring afternoon, Talia graduated from nursing school. Tae-hyun and Tae-young were in the audience, cheering loudly when her name was called. She'd finished her degree while continuing to care for Tae-young, the flexible schedule and financial support making possible what had seemed impossible before. I'm so proud of you, Tae-hyun said afterward, pulling her close. Nurse Brooks has a good ring to it. Nurse Kong sounds better, she said, then froze. I wasn't asking. Good, he interrupted, dropping to one knee right there on the lawn, surrounded by other graduates and their families. Because I was planning to ask. He pulled out a ring, elegant, simple, with a stone that caught the light. Talia Brooks, will you marry me? Will you officially join this strange, complicated family? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the woman who saved my father and changed everything? Yes, she said, not caring that people were staring. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then stood and kissed her while their gathered crowd applauded. Tae-young was crying, using a handkerchief to dab at his eyes. My daughter, he said when they finally broke apart. Finally have daughter. The wedding was 6 months later, a blend of traditions, American and Korean, formal and casual, perfect, and chaotic in all the right ways. Talia walked down the aisle to find Tae-hyun waiting, tears in his eyes, surrounded by friends and family from both their worlds. Da-young, walking without assistance now after a year of dedicated physical therapy, gave her away with obvious pride. "I knew," he whispered as he placed her hand in his son's. "Dae, you saved me. I knew you'd save him too." The vows were simple but profound. Tae-hyun promised to love her in both calm and chaos, to build a life worthy of her trust, to never stop being grateful that she'd jumped into that pool. Talia promised to stand beside him through hard transitions, to love his father like her own, to build something beautiful from the broken pieces they'd both brought to this relationship. At the reception, held in one of the Kong family restaurants, Talia found herself dancing with Dae-young. He was steady now, strong, the man he'd been before the stroke finally returning. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, do." He pulled back to look at her. "You saved my life that day, but more, you saved my son. Gave him hope, showed him better way. That's gift I never repay." "You gave me a family," Talia said, tears threatening. "You gave me purpose and love and a place to belong. We're even." "Not even, never even, but equal, partners," he smiled. "Welcome to family, daughter." 3 years later, Talia stood in the nursery of their new house, not the Hancock Park mansion, but a home they'd chosen together in mid-Wilshire, close to both the community center and Dae-young's apartment. She rocked her daughter 6 months. Old, with Tae-hyun's dark hair and her own dark skin, beautiful in the way mixed children always are, and thought about the chain of events that had led here. A splash. A decision to act instead of looking away. An old man in a wheelchair, drowning, while the world moved on. And the choice always a choice to jump in, to save a stranger, to do the right thing without thinking about consequences. Tae-hyun appeared in the doorway, home from work. The Kong business empire was thriving now, fully legitimate, respected in the community. He'd been named to the mayor's economic advisory board, was being courted to run for city council. The past hadn't disappeared, but it had been integrated, acknowledged, moved beyond. "How are my girls?" he asked softly, crossing to wrap his arms around both of them. "Perfect. She's finally asleep." "Good, because my father is downstairs with approximately 17 Korean side dishes he insists we need to eat tonight." Talia laughed. Dae-young had moved into a smaller place nearby after they'd bought this house, insisting young families needed privacy. But he visited daily, always bringing food, always finding excuses to hold his granddaughter, always watching Talia and Tae-hyun. With satisfaction. "He's going to spoil her rotten," Talia said. "Absolutely. It's his right as a grandfather." Tae-hyun kissed the top of her head. "Did I tell you? The prosecutor called today. Park's final appeal was denied. He'll serve his full sentence. 20 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and a dozen other charges. Justice finally for a man who tried to use violence and fear to control others." "Good," Talia said simply. "Good," Tae-hyun agreed. He was quiet for a moment, just holding his wife and daughter. Then, "I never thanked you properly for that. Day." "Which day?" "The day you saved my father. The day you jumped into that pool without hesitation. The day you changed everything." He turned her to face him, careful not to wake the baby. "I was lost before you, Talia, trapped between the past and a future I couldn't quite reach. And then you appeared, and suddenly the path forward was clear. I just pulled him out of the water. You pulled us both out, saved us both from drowning in different ways." His eyes were intense, grateful, full of the love that had grown and deepened over years together. "You gave me my father back, and then you gave me everything else, hope, purpose, family, love. A life worth living instead of just surviving. We built it together, Talia corrected gently. You and me and your father. All of us choosing something better. Still, thank you for jumping in, for not looking away. He kissed her softly, for saving us. Downstairs, Dae-young called out in Korean, something about the soup getting cold. Their daughter stirred, making the tiny sounds that preceded crying. They'd gotten a dog barked at something outside. Life, messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful, called them back. But for just a moment longer, they stood together in that nursery. The former waitress who'd worked 2 jobs and dreamed of nursing school. The former gangster's son trying to build something legitimate from complicated foundations. The elderly man who'd almost drowned and found his second chance. 3 people from different worlds who'd formed a family through courage, love, and the simple choice to care when caring mattered most. Ready? Tae-hyun asked, gesturing toward the door and the life waiting below. Always, Talia said, and together, carrying their daughter, they went downstairs to join Dae-young for dinner. To share food and stories and laughter. To build another memory in the collection they were creating together. To live the life they'd fought for, messy and complicated, and absolutely worth every risk. Because Talia had learned something that day at the pool, something she'd carried forward into everything that followed. Sometimes saving someone else is how you save yourself. Sometimes jumping in without knowing if you'll make it back is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes the splash that changes everything is the one you don't hesitate to answer. She jumped in once, pulled a stranger from drowning water. And in saving him, she'd found her own rescue from loneliness, from purposelessness, from a life half-lived. She'd found family, love, meaning. She'd found home. The water had been cold and murky and dangerous. But she jumped in anyway. And, God, what a beautiful thing waited on the other side. 2 years into their marriage. The phone call came at 3 a.m., the kind that makes your blood run cold before you even answer. Talia woke to Tae-hyun already sitting up, speaking rapid Korean, his voice tight with something she'd learned to recognize as controlled panic. "What's wrong?" she asked when he hung up. "My father's building. There was a fire." "He's okay," Tae-hyun added quickly, seeing her face. "He's fine, already at the hospital for smoke inhalation." "But Tilia ... He ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't an accident." Ice flooded her veins. Park's still in prison. But he has people on the outside. People who remember the old. Alliances who think I betrayed the family by testifying. Tae-hyun stood, already pulling on clothes. "This is a message. They're telling me the past isn't finished. Then we deal with it, like we always do." Talia was up too, getting dressed with practiced efficiency. Together. At the hospital, they found Dae-young sitting up in bed, oxygen mask pushed aside, arguing with a nurse in Korean about being released. When he saw them, relief flooded his face. "I'm fine," he said immediately. "Just smoke, nothing serious." "Abeaji, what happened?" Tae-hyun took his father's hand. "I woke to smell smoke. Fire alarm broken, that's first thing. Someone disabled." Dae-young's expression darkened. "I called 911, got out. But Tae-hyun ... This is my fault. My old life, my old debts, coming back." "This is not your fault," Talia said firmly, taking his other hand. "This is criminals being criminals. We stopped them once. We'll stop them again." But stopping them proved harder than expected. Over the next month, there were 3 more incidents of vandalism at the restaurants, threatening messages left at the community center, a brick thrown through the window of Tae-hyun's office. Each one carefully designed to intimidate without, providing evidence that could lead back to specific people. They're smarter this time, Tae Hyan said one night, studying police reports that led nowhere. More careful. They know we'll go to authorities, so they're making sure there's nothing concrete to report. Then we need to be smarter too, Talia said. An idea had been forming, risky but possible. What if we gave them what they think they want? What do you mean? They want back in. Want access to your businesses? Want to re-establish the old relationships? What if you pretended to be willing? Set up a meeting, get them talking, get evidence of their threats on record? That's entrapment and dangerous. It's self-defense. And yes, it's dangerous. But so is waiting for them to escalate. So is living in fear that the next fire might hurt someone. Talia met his eyes. Tae Hyan, we have a daughter now. I won't raise her in a world where violence hangs over us like a cloud. We end this permanently. He was quiet for a long time. Then, okay, we do it your way. But with precautions. Police involvement, wires, everything legal and documented. They planned for 2 weeks. Tae Hyan reached out through old channels, letting it be known he was reconsidering his position on the family business. That the fires had reminded him where his loyalties should lie. The response was immediate, a meeting request from Park's second-in-command, a man named Cho, who'd been running operations while Park was imprisoned. The meeting was set for a warehouse in the industrial district. Tae Hyan would wear a wire. Police would be positioned nearby. And Talia insisted on being there too, hidden but present, backup in case anything went wrong. Absolutely not, Tae Hyan said when she proposed it. I won't let you put yourself in danger. You don't let me do anything. I'm your partner, your equal. And I'm not sitting at home while you walk into a trap. Her voice was steel. I saved your father once. I'll save you if I have to. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face. But he also knew her well enough by now to recognize when she'd made up her mind. Fine, but you stay with the police. Hidden, safe. The night of the meeting was cold, fog rolling in from the ocean to shroud the city in mist. Talia sat in an unmarked police car 2 blocks from the warehouse, listening to Tae Hyan's wire through headphones. Her heart pounded as she heard him enter the building, heard Cho's voice greeting him like an old friend. Tae Hyan, good to see you've come to your senses. My father's fire clarified things. Tae Hyan's voice was steady. Made me remember where I come from. Smart man. Park always said you had potential. Said you just needed the right ... motivation. Laughter, cold and cruel. Fire works well for motivation. You admit to the fire? I'm admitting to teaching a lesson. One you apparently learned. Now, let's talk about how you're going to make this right. Starting with 49% of your restaurant holdings, and the wire went dead. Just static, then nothing. He found it, the detective beside Talia said, already moving. All units go now. But Talia was already out of the car, running toward the warehouse. She heard the detective yelling behind her, heard sirens starting up, but it was all distant compared to the terror pounding in her ears. Tae Hyan was in there, exposed, his cover blown. They would hurt him, kill him maybe, and she couldn't lose him. Not after everything they'd built together. She reached the warehouse as police swarmed the entrances. Someone tried to grab her, pull her back, but she twisted free and slipped through a side door. Inside was chaos shouts in Korean, sounds of struggle, and then a gunshot that made her heart stop. Tae Hyan. She screamed his name, not caring about strategy or safety. Tae Hyan. Here. His voice, thank God his voice. Talia, stay back. But she couldn't stay back. She ran toward his voice, toward the center of the warehouse where she found him held at gunpoint by Cho, while 3 other men stood with weapons drawn. The police were at the doors, but not entering, clearly worried about hostages. "Well," Cho said when he saw Talia, "the famous rescuer. The woman who started all this trouble by saving the old man. His gun never left Tae-hyun's head. You should have let him drown. Would have saved everyone a lot of problems." "Let him go," Talia said, hands raised. "You want money? Access? I can make that happen. I handle the finances now. But you need him alive to get any of it." "We don't need him alive. We need him compliant. And the best way to make him compliant," Cho shifted the gun towards her, "is to take away what he loves most." Everything happened too fast. Cho's finger on the trigger. Tae-hyun lunging forward despite the gun at his head. Police breaching through multiple doors simultaneously. And Talia diving sideways as the shot rang out, feeling something hot streak across her shoulder. Pain blooming bright and sharp dot. Then Tae-hyun was on Cho, fighting with savage intensity. Police swarmed the remaining men. Shouts and chaos and the metallic taste of fear. And Talia, pressed against cold concrete, watching blood pool beneath her shoulder and thinking absurdly, "I just saved him again. Third time. That's got to be some kind of record." "Talia." Tae-hyun was there suddenly, hands on her face, her shoulder, checking the wound with shaking fingers. "Oh God, you're bleeding, it's just a graze," she managed, though it hurt like hell. "I'm okay. Are you?" "I'm fine." "Jesus Christ, Talia, you could have been killed." "What were you thinking?" Asterisk. "I was thinking that I'm not losing you. Not to them, not to anyone." She tried to sit up, hissed at the pain. "Did we get it? The confession?" "We got it. Before the wire died, they admitted to everything, the fire, the threats, their whole operation." Tae-hyun pulled her carefully into his arms. "It's over. Finally over." Paramedics arrived. Police statements were taken. Cho and his associates were arrested on a dozen charges each. And through it all, Tae-hyun stayed pressed against Talia's side, refusing to let her out of his sight while they treated her shoulder a graze. Like she'd said, painful but not serious dot at the hospital later, with her arm bandaged and painkillers. Making everything soft at the edges, Talia found Dae-young waiting with their daughter. He looked at her with eyes full of tears. "You keep saving us," he said. "Keep jumping in. Keep risking everything. That's what family does," Talia said simply. "You do the same for me." 6 months later, the last of Park's organization had been dismantled. Cho and his associates were awaiting trial, and the Kang family finally, truly, was free from the shadows of the past. Free to build without looking over their shoulders. Free to live without fear. On the anniversary of the day Talia had pulled Dae-young from that pool, they returned to the Paradise Community pool, renovated now with donations from Kang Enterprises. Made safer, more beautiful, more accessible. There was a small plaque by the entrance, in honor of Talia Brooks Kang, who reminds us that heroism is simply choosing to act when others look away. "Still embarrassing," Talia said, looking at the plaque while Dae-young splashed in the shallow. And with his granddaughter, both wearing life jackets, both laughing. "Still true," Tae-hyun countered, arm around her waist. "You saved us, all of us. My father from drowning, me from a life half-lived, our family from the past's grip. You're a hero whether you accept it or not. I'm just someone who jumped in when I saw someone drowning." "Exactly. That's what makes you extraordinary. The seeing and the jumping. Most people do neither." He kissed her temple. "I love you, Talia Kang. My wife, my partner, my constant rescuer. I love you too. Even though you keep getting into situations that require rescuing, I'll try to stop. Please don't. It keeps life interesting." They watched Dae-young and their daughter play, watched the community enjoy the pool that had been the site of so much change. And Talia thought about that day, 3 years ago, when she'd heard a splash that was wrong. When she'd made the choice to jump in instead of looking away, she'd saved an old man's life. And in doing so, she'd found her own found love and family. And purpose. Found a place where she belonged, where her tendency to jump in was valued rather than criticized. Found people worth risking everything for. The water sparkled in the afternoon sun. Children laughed. And Talia Kong, former waitress, current nurse, eternal rescuer, felt perfectly, completely content. Because she'd learned something profound. In these 3 years, we're all drowning in different ways. And the most important thing we can do is jump in for each other. Risk the cold water, brave the uncertainty, pull each other toward safety and light. She jumped in once for a stranger, and he'd become family. She jumped in again and again, each time choosing courage over safety. And each time, she'd been rewarded with something precious. "Mama," her daughter called from the pool. "Come swim." Talia looked at Tae Hyen, who smiled. "Go on, jump in," and she did, diving into the clear water, swimming toward her daughter and father-in-law, letting the pool that had changed everything embrace her one more time. The water was perfect, not too cold, not too warm. Just right. Just like the life she'd built by refusing to look away, by choosing to jump in, by saving a stranger and finding in the process that she'd saved herself too. The splash echoed, and Talia Kong surfaced, laughing, surrounded by family, exactly where she was always meant to be. 5 years later, the community center was packed. Talia stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces, young people from the scholarship program she and Tae Hyen had founded, families who'd been helped by Dae Young's medical fund, business owners who'd benefited from the Kong's community, investment initiatives, people whose lives had been touched by a family that had chosen to build something good from complicated foundations. 5 years ago, Talia said, I jumped into a pool to save a drowning man. I didn't know who he was. Didn't know that simple act would change everything, would lead me to love, to family, to this community we've built together. She looked at Tae Hyen, standing in the front row with Dae Young and their daughter, now 3, with a baby brother at home with a sitter. But here's what I've learned. We're all drowning sometimes. In circumstances, in poverty, in systems that don't see us. And we all need someone willing to jump in, to risk something of themselves to pull us toward safety. So tonight, as we celebrate 5 years of the Kong Family Foundation, I want to challenge you. Find your pool. Find the place where someone's drowning and others are looking away. And jump in. It might be inconvenient, might be uncomfortable, might change your life in ways you can't predict. But I promise you, the splash you make will ripple outward in ways you can't imagine. Applause filled the room. Talia stepped down from the podium, and Tae Hyen was there immediately, pulling her close. Beautiful speech, he murmured. Though you left out the part where you jumped in twice more after that. Saved me from myself. Saved our family from my past. That's because I'm done keeping score. She kissed him softly. We save each other. That's how this works. Dae Young approached, walking with just a slight limp now, nearly fully recovered. I'm proud, he said in Korean, which Talia now understood fluently. So proud of what we built. What we built together, Talia corrected. All of us. Their daughter tugged on Talia's dress. Mama, tell the pool story. Talia laughed. You've heard it 1,000 times. Tell it again. So they sat together, Talia and Tae Hyen, Dae Hung, their daughter, and Talia told the story one more time. About a splash that was wrong. About a choice to act instead of look away. About how jumping in, even when you're scared, even when the water's cold, even when you don't know if you'll make it back, how that single choice can change everything. The story had grown over the years, become family legend. But the core remained true. Courage matters. Action matters. Choosing to see someone else's crisis in deciding it's your responsibility too that matters most of all. Late that night, after the celebration ended and guests dispersed, Talia stood on their back patio, looking at the city lights. Tae-hyun joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the chill. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "About that day. About how I almost didn't jump. Almost convinced myself someone else would handle it, that it wasn't my problem." She leaned into him. "About how different my life would be if I'd made that choice. No us. No us. No family. No purpose beyond paying bills and surviving day. Today," she turned to face him, "I was drowning too, you know. In debt, in dead-end jobs, in dreams I'd given up on. And saving your father saved me too. Pulled me toward a life I never imagined I could have."